Hi, today we will be discussing about that part of the world which is often being ignored. And People's Republic of China, the Chinese Communist Party, is expanding its sphere of influence there. That part of the world is the Latin America, this area. And in two episodes, we will discuss about this area. First, we will discuss about what was the part when America was the only hegemon in this region. What mistakes America committed. It will be a friendly criticism because I do not want Chinese hegemony in the world. So we will be discussing what wrongs America has done in this part of the world and due to which Chinese are getting influence. And in next part, we will talk about what China is doing there and what should be done by America now. President Monroe, he was the president of the United States of America from 1817 to 1825, and he was the gentleman who wrote the Monroe Doctrine. This was the time when Latin American countries got independence from Spain and other European powers like Germany, France, England was seeking to make them colonies. And what President Monroe wrote in his doctrine, it was that European powers, other imperial European countries should stay out of Latin America. And to keep them out of Latin America, America will even fight. The United States of America will even go for a war. The Monroe Doctrine was designed to keep the Latin American countries independent and keep the European imperial powers out. But it also made the United States of America the boss of the region. And the United States of America started involving in many situations in Latin America, like a policeman. And this led to the kind of US-led imperialism in that part of the world which still people hate. In year 1898, United States of America fought a war with Spain and forced them out of Latin America. The United States of America also promised the Latin American countries that they will be the guarantees of their independence, but they did not really deliver independence to these states. Instead, America herself became a kind of imperial country. Though they never called themselves an imperial power, but in reality, America became an imperial power in Latin America. Now, the obvious question which arises is why America and American companies were interested in these countries of Latin America. So American companies were wanting businesses there in Latin America. They wanted raw materials like fruit, coffee, sugar, tobacco and other stuff as well. They also wanted new markets to sell their ready-made products. Many of these companies owned land and businesses and they were wanting protection for their businesses and their lands. They wanted Latin American countries to have governments which were favorable and friendly to the US companies and to the US businesses. They wanted to stop revolutions and unions that could harm their business interests. And this is why United States of America and American businesses got involved with the Latin American countries and their internal politics. For almost 100 years, the United States of America intervened in the governments and internal affairs of Latin American countries. We all have heard about the term Banana Republic. The term Banana Republic originated as a way to describe the experiences of many of these Central American countries whose economies and politics were determined by the US based banana exporters at the turn of the 20th century. In political science, the term banana republic describes a politically and economically unstable country with an economy which is dependent upon the exports of natural resources. In 1904, the American author Mr. O. Henry coined the term to describe Costa Rica and Honduras under economic exploitation by the US corporations. So this was Mr. O. Henry, the author, and Mr. O. Henry was the person who coined the term Banana Republic. Now there are many examples of countries where United States of America and the US government as well as US businesses interfered and intervened in the local politics and also changed the regime. They also sent their soldiers. We will discuss some of the important ones. Chile. This is the long country with a huge coastal line, Chile. In 1891, there was a civil war there in Chile. One side of the civil war was friendly to the United States businesses. The other side was not. The US government helped the side which was friendly to American businesses. But those guys to whom the US government was supporting, they lost. But they also lost the favor and good harmony of the Chilean people. The Chilean people were angry that US has interfered in their political situation. Still there is some kind of bad blood is there because of these previous experiences and memories. Venezuela. In 1895, there was a dispute between Venezuela and United Kingdom. Both countries were claiming that they owned lands between Venezuela and British Guiana. That land was having a lot of gold. Great Britain was wanting to attack Venezuela, but US cited the Monroe Doctrine. They told Great Britain that if they come and attack Venezuela, then US will come to rescue the independence of Venezuela. And Britain then stopped. Then a committee was formed by the United States to discuss whose land was it, the land which was having lots of deposits of gold. And Venezuela was not allowed to participate in the very committee which will be deciding the fate of Venezuela. And in the end, the committee decided to give that land to Great Britain. Now you can understand how bad blood and bad memories come. This event showed the world that America doesn't care about Latin America. Secondly, for America, United Kingdom was more important than as compared to Venezuela. Even today, if you look at Venezuela, it's a country with lot of oil. But under United States sanctions, US has also interfered and intervened in the local elections. They don't consider the president of Venezuela as the legal president, and they consider his opponent as the president of Venezuela. And Venezuela is crumbling under severe economic sanctions. So bad blood exists, and it is existing since 1895. Then came the era of President Roosevelt, and President Roosevelt officially expanded the Monroe Doctrine. His new policy was called as Roosevelt Corollary. This policy was also known as Big Stick Policy. It said that United States will be the boss and policeman for the countries of Latin America. If you look at the Big Stick Policy, as part of the Big Stick Policy, Latin American countries were forced to pay all their debts, and when they were not able to pay their debts, US military was sent to those countries. Coming to Cuba, in 1898, America took the colony of Cuba away from Spain, and Cubans had fought along with the Spanish because they were promised independence. After the war was finished, America gave Cuba independence, but its government was forced to sign the Platt Amendment. This amendment gave the US the right to intervene in the Cuban politics. American troops often occupied Cuba and told them what to do. Americans, however, helped them to solve many of the problems, and one of the problems which they were suffering was malaria, which was killing a lot of people. But they were also interfering and intervening in their local politics. Then came the Cold War and Bay of Pigs, the attack of the Bay of Pigs, which in 1961 the US government sent trained Cuban exiles to Cuba to try to overthrow Fidel Castro's government, but they failed miserably. Even today there is a bad blood, and Cuba is suffering from the American sanctions. By 1900s, United States became the most powerful country on the earth, and this power was due to the power of US Navy. But American Navy had a problem. They had to fight in different oceans, and to go from one ocean to another, the traveling was a difficult and dangerous job. The ships had to travel, American ships had to travel around the bottom of South America, and this took crazy amount of time, and this was dangerous. The region was also full of storms. It was expensive, it was time consuming, and it was dangerous. And that was the reason America wanted to build a canal as a shortcut between two oceans. And the best place to do it was the Isthmus of Panama. Panama was controlled that time by Colombia, and in exchange of this, Colombia was asking for a lot of money. This is the region, this is Panama, this was the Isthmus of Panama, and United States was wanting to make a Panama Canal over here, and for that they needed support of Colombia. But Colombia was asking for a lot of money, and Americans were not ready to give them so much of money. So what they did, they instead supported the revolutionary group there in Panama. The revolutionary group wanted to make Panama independent from Colombia. The US sent their army and navy to help these revolutionaries. When the revolution was finished, the revolutionary group let the United States take the canal for cheap. In 1914, when the canal was finished, America could move its ships from ocean to ocean very easily, and this made America much more stronger. After Roosevelt came the era of President Taft, and Taft liked big businesses. He wanted to spread American businesses to the entire Latin America, and for that he used the American military as well. He basically replaced and changed the Monroe Doctrine into dollar diplomacy. It was President Taft who brought the dollar diplomacy. Taft's goal was to help American businesses to be more successful in Latin America, and for that he also supported the governments which were supportive of US governments, and he also changed the governments which were not supportive of US businesses. Taft pursued dollar diplomacy to encourage the US investments in South and Central America, in the Caribbean, and also in the Far East. To implement this foreign policy, Taft used government officials to promote the sales of American products overseas, particularly heavy industry as well as military hardware. In Taft's mind and in his own policy, the US's foreign policy was supported by US military. The US military was a tool of economic diplomacy of America under President Taft. Now you can understand how the US policy is taking shape, and it started from Latin America and it went global. President Taft also brought American banks to support the regimes which were supportive of US businesses. Like in case of Honduras, he supported the collapsing economic government by the help of US banks. And in Nicaragua, President Taft sent his troops, he sent the US Army to support the government which was about to collapse. But since that government was friendly to United States of America, President Taft helped that government by sending 2,700 troops and American Marines and save the Nicaraguan government, which was successful to US foreign policy as well as to US businesses. In the country of Nicaragua, the American businessmen acted like real kings. The workers were very poor, they had almost no rights. A man called Sanido, he started a communist revolution. He wanted to put the businesses away from the Americans and give them to the Nicaraguan workers. American troops came to Nicaragua to fight against this guy. They stayed there for 20 long years to protect the American businesses, and those businesses were really brutal and they were not caring about the human rights and workers' conditions. If you look at Mexico, America intervened so many times in Mexico to have friendly rights. So today we saw how US policy played there in Latin America. It started basically from Latin America via Monroe Doctrine, big stick policy, dollar diplomacy, and then it evolved the US foreign policy for the world. But now a new player has arrived in the backyard of United States, that is in Latin America, and this player is China. In our next episode, we will see what China is doing there in Latin America and what should America do to check Chinese. Thank you.